In this film, we're going to take you through all of the pre-use checks required before operating a counterbalance forklift truck. These checks are not only required to ensure your safety when using the vehicle, you also need to do them to ensure you won't be implicated for any damage already done to the vehicle before you start using it. Before you carry out the checks, you'll need to take a look at the information plates. These are usually inside the cab so they can be easily read. However, their location varies depending on the make and model of the truck. Sometimes all the information is contained on one plate only. Capacity plates display all the technical details about the truck, including rated capacity, that's how much the truck can lift, and its weight. They also show the maximum height the truck can lift to and the load center distance. They give the driver immediate sight of the key information required when working. Other information such as the chassis number, the model, the year of manufacture and the battery voltage can also be found either on the same plate or on a separate one. On the forks, check for any wear on the underside. This may only be possible once the forks are raised. Also, look for chips on the top of the forks. You should do this by running your foot along them, as they're made from tempered steel, and using your hand could result in you cutting yourself. Also check for cracks on the heel of the forks, as this is where most of the weight is carried, and check that they're attached correctly to the carriage plate at the anchor points. The first thing you need to look out for on the carriage plate is any sign of cracking. Next, check if there are any bolts, including the stop bolts, to be secured or replaced. Also ensure that the castellated bolts aren't rounded off, as this could allow the forks to slide once they're locked into position. Lastly, check that the back is well greased and oiled, as this is what allows the forks to open and close smoothly. The load guard protects the driver from any loads that may tumble towards him or her from the front of the vehicle. Your visual check here should note any damage, cracks, twisting or other distortion, while you should also ensure that the load guard is solidly secured, particularly at the back where the clips will be bent if the truck has had any impact to the guard. Next, you'll need to take a look at the mast. Examine the exterior condition, again looking for any dints, cracks, twisting or distortion, before checking the inside channels to ensure that they're well greased. You may notice a buildup of iron filings if they're not properly greased. Also, remove any debris such as bits of broken pallet and shrink wrap. On the lift chains, look for any obvious damage and see that they're well greased and oiled. The chains should be dark grey or black if they're oiled correctly, while any shiny links will indicate a lack of grease or possibly a damaged link. Make sure the chain is sitting properly on the pulley with no slack in it. You can check this again when you raise the forks later in the pre-use checks. Slackness in the chain will weaken it, which could result in it breaking. To examine the hoses and pipes, you'll need to move around the truck, checking the ones in front of the chains, those behind and at the foot of the mast, and the ones at the sides of the carriage. Look for any damage such as abrasions, rips or tears, and any leaking fluid that may have dripped down the cylinders. Leaks will often leave a pool of fluid on the underside of the truck at the front end. Also check that all the connectors are in place, that they're secure, and free from any leaks or other damage resulting from impact. As they're solid rubber, there's no need to check the tyres on the forklift truck for air pressure, but you do need to make sure there's an appropriate amount of tread on the tyres. Check for any cracks to the sidewalls and look to see if any big chunks have been taken out of the rubber, as these could destabilize the vehicle when it's moving. Also check for any slices next to the rim of the wheel and see that the wheel nuts are all in place and that they're touch tight. Walk around the entire exterior of the truck looking for any obvious damage. Also check the overhead frame and the guard, and look for any creases or kinks in the upright posts and the protection bars above the driver's head. Any compromises in the integrity of these would mean that the structure protecting the driver could be seriously weakened. You first need to check the cab for any unwanted items. These can get trapped under the pedals, so it's important that the cab is free from any debris. Make sure the seat is solid and that it slides backwards and forwards smoothly. Check that the seat belt works properly, that it extends and retracts in the correct manner, and that the buckle fits into the clasp securely. Once you've taken your position on the seat, make sure you set your seating position correctly. If you're working for a long period, it's important that you're comfortable in your seat. If you're working on a truck with armrests, check that they're in place and secure. To start the vehicle, insert the key and turn it to start the engine. Look at the digital display for the information on the screen. You must note any warning lights or service or fault indicators. If the vehicle's in a usable state, the screen should be clear of any of these indicators. It's important to check that any audible warnings on the vehicle are operating as they should. Try the horn to make sure it's working, and check that the audible warning kicks in when the vehicle's put into reverse. To test the hydraulic controls, first raise the forks in the air as far as the space will allow for. You should be checking to see that these raise in a smooth motion with no juddering or stuttering, and that no air or fluid is escaping from any of the pipes, hoses or cylinders. Look at the chain again to see that it's mounted on the pulley properly and that it's taut with no slackness in it as the forks raise and lower. Note that when you raise the forks, it's best to allow 5 to 10 seconds for the fluid to warm up in the cylinders before lowering. Lastly, check that the forks move properly when tilting them and shifting them from side to side. You need to check that the vehicle is running smoothly. Drive it backwards and forwards to do this, noting the way it operates. Braking is clearly an extremely important function on the forklift truck, and you must check that both braking systems are working properly. These are the foot pedal brake, which you check by pressing the brake while the truck is moving, and the parking brake, which you can check by having the brake on while trying to move the vehicle in forward and reverse. To check the steering, move forward and in reverse in a snaking motion. As you do so, note whether the steering's reacting properly, that there's no locking up of the steering mechanism, and that it's not too stiff. With all the checks done, make sure you complete your check sheet, and assuming your vehicle is fit for purpose, you're all ready to go.